What's up and welcome back to another video right here on Free Will Photos. Now, one of the main things that I get asked is how do I get photos edited faster? And my first answer is always using a preset. Now, today what we're going to do is really dive into what we can learn from presets. All of the presets that I'm going to be using in today's tutorial are built into ON1. So if you own ON1 Photo Raw 2024 and maybe even any version of ON1, you'll have access to these presets. And you'll be able to see what filters go alongside other filters to give you a specific look. So without further ado, let's jump into the computer and take a look. So here we are inside of ON1 Photo Raw, and what you already see is an edit that I made. So let me show you what the before looks like, which is this right here, photo of a lion that I photographed at the National Zoo over the weekend. And then this is just a quick edit that I threw on here. Now, right now I'm inside of the minimalist preset pack. This again comes with ON1 Photo Raw, so you'll be able to use this pretty much as soon as you install it and get going. Now, if you're not seeing the previews for your presets or thumbnails for your presets, you may need to click this little show hide left pane so it'll pop up. So you may have a screen that looks a little bit like this. Once you click it, you'll get these little windows here. All right. Now, make sure you're also on the preset tab because that could also be a thing that could keep you in the wrong area. Now, what I have here is the minimalist presets. And I like these presets because it's a look that I really do enjoy in my photography. And one of the benefits of learning how to edit this way is it's going to keep you consistent. So you start to develop a look that you really, really enjoy in your photography. So what we're going to do, I've already saved this as a snapshot. And if you're not familiar with snapshots, don't worry about it. We'll come back to that. What we're going to do is just hover over each of these presets. And we're going to get on the main window here a display or a preview of what that will do to the overall image. And all you have to do is hover over until you find one that you like. And I think I'm going to go with this one. I like the way that this one looks, so I'm going to click it. And what it does is it replaces all of the effects. Now, the cool thing about ON1 Photo Raw, and this isn't true in other editors, but at least in ON1, whenever you use one of the presets that are built in, it only affects the effect stack. So if I come over to develop, you can see I use Brilliance AI on this image. In fact, just to show you exactly how it all works, I'm going to click on original. And this brings me back to the very basic edit of the photo. Probably should have started here, but you know, I just wanted to get into it. So now what I'm going to do is hover over the preset. You'll see that it gives me my preview. And if I click on it, it's going to add that information or those filters into the photo. But notice that my develop section is untouched. And this is the reason why I think presets in ON1 are just so amazing to use. I'll do a different video about that. But presets are awesome. So if I click on effects, what you'll see is I actually have a few effects that are stacked over here. This particular preset comes with 4 effects. I have a vintage, a black and white, a tone enhancer, and a dynamic contrast. Now, what's important about this is you can turn each one of these off. And when I turn it off, you see I get back to the basic photo or the original photo. If I hit the backslash key or hold it down, you can see I have the preview turned off and now it's turned back on. No change has happened. So what's happening over here with this particular buildup? Well, we're starting with dynamic contrast in this particular preset. So if I turn it on, we're going to see what happens to the image. And it just crunches up everything. It gives it contrast in a really nice way. And what's even more cool about using these effects or presets, is you can come over to the effects and take a look at what settings are being used. So if you're like, hey, I don't know how I should be using this particular filter, well, you can come over to dynamic contrast inside of one of the presets and just see how the people over at ON1, when they were building their presets, how they worked out. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this looks very, very similar to the neutral. So let me just click neutral and see what happens. Okay, so it is not neutral. That is not that preset. And so we'll undo that and let me see if it's soft. Nope. So this is actually custom made for this preset, all right, which is really cool. So you can kind of see that way. So that's like step number one of using presets to learn how to edit photos for yourself and really just get familiar with what each of these effects or filters can do, all right? So we'll turn or close that, and then we'll turn on the tone enhancer. Now, what's important to note here is the very first thing that's impacting our image is actually this dynamic contrast. And then we're putting a tone enhancer on top of that. If I were to do this in the opposite direction, putting the tone enhancer under the dynamic contrast, we're going to get a different look. All right. Now, you can't really tell the difference here because it's not like a significant change. But what I am noticing, if we zoom in, we'll zoom into the face of the lion. Don't get scared. He's cool. All right. If I pull the tone enhancer underneath the dynamic contrast, watch how much contrast we get back in the image. And now it's not as faded or hazy, if you will. It's not as light. It's more contrasty. But for the sake of keeping this pure to the effect itself or the preset, I just want to go ahead and put the tone enhancer back in place. So if I turn this off and turn it back on, you can see what it's doing to the image. Now, this filter is only using the curves module. Now, I have a video all about the curves. I'll put that in the description box below if that's something you want to check out. But notice that it's only working on the tone section or the very first section here that's labeled all. All right. I'm not going to go into details about how the curves filter works because I do have a video that talks about that. But notice that this is pulling up on the blacks, which is what's giving us that faded look. And if I pull this up all the way, you can really see where it's impacting in those areas, and they're starting to get like inverted, and we don't want that. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull that back down. But it's a very slight S-curve for contrast in the overall image. And what we are seeing is if you want to add in some dynamic contrast to help give the photo a little bit more structure, because you can see this is a raw image and it's a little soft, and that's normal with raw images. All right. With a JPEG, this may need to be seasoned to taste. But with a raw image that usually comes out of camera a little soft, it doesn't hurt to throw some dynamic contrast on it initially so you can start to get some structure back in your image. Now keep in mind, I still haven't done anything over here in the develop section, all right? So if I wanted to, I could throw more structure in using the develop section, but I'm not worried about doing that right this second because I want to showcase how you can really start to dissect a preset and learn exactly what you can throw onto your images and start to get looks that you really enjoy. All right. So that's the dynamic contrast, the tone enhancer, and then we have a black and white filter. So if I turn that on, and I think this is working relatively simple, right? The black and white filter is just taking out all of the color, desaturating the image, and the opacity was set to 78. So there's a little bit of color, and it's a lot easier to see when you zoom out and you're really taking in the whole image. Now, if I were to pull this down a little bit more, you can see it kind of desaturates the entire image, but it's not as desaturated because more color is punching through. And then of course, if I pull this up to 100%, then it's going to desaturate the entire image. But for the preset, it was around 75, and this is just giving that really faded, desaturated look. So let's see if there's anything else in the black and white filter that's being used. So the toner is not being used, film grain is not being used, and the conversion, it looks like they pulled the filter over just a little bit. It's using the channel mixer setting. And if you pull the filter, you can see how that really starts to impact the look of the image. Honestly, this is one of those things you season to taste, especially when you're starting to fade it with the opacity. But what you're learning, or at least what you can learn from this, is you get a little bit more control over the entire style for your edit. And that's the reason why I really do enjoy using presets. And we'll just go back to 81 because I want to keep the preset pure. But this is the reason why I enjoy using presets on my edits, so that way I can get a pretty unique look. All right. And then finally, we have the vintage look. And I think the vintage look, it's really just adding in a little bit of color to make the image kind of cohesive. And this is really helpful if you are like, you know, I'm not quite sure if I want a more desaturated look with a common tone. And the vintage filter, it works pretty good for this. And if I'm not mistaken, the minimalist presets have been around for a very long time. I think there's other ways that you can get this exact same look without using, you know, the vintage filter, where you can put a specific color over the image. And one of those ways I will show you really quickly, because I think that it gets overlooked often. And that's inside of the local adjustments. And we'll just add the adjustment. I'm going to reset the exposure to 0. And then I'm going to come down to paint with color. All right. And then all I need to do is leave it on solid paint. Click the little color picker here. And we're going to go with the orange color, because this is going to give us that sepia tone look. And what I'm going to do is just zoom out and make my brush size pretty large. And then I'm just going to paint over the entire image. Now, I think I actually have my flow down pretty low. Let me go check that. Yeah. So let's bring the flow all the way up to 100. And then we'll just come over the entire image. And it doesn't look like it's doing much of anything right this second. However, what I can do is come up to the top, and I could just pull down the opacity, and we'll zoom back in. So I can pull down the opacity here and just kind of fade that in. And that's giving me essentially the same look that I got with the vintage filter sepia tone. The difference here is local adjustments. They do impact the image before the effects. So this is really sitting underneath all of these effects, the way that the local adjustment works. All right. But that's one method. Now I'm going to pull this up to 100%, and I'm going to click on the properties here, come over to blending, and we're going to change this over to color. So now what I get is a different look. Now I've colored the entire image with this orangish overlay. And if I pull this down, you can see I'm starting to bring back the original color, and I still got back to something that was very similar to what was in the effects module. All right. So if I turn this off and turn it back on, you can see what it's doing to the image. It's very subtle, but this is a method that gives you a lot of control the reason why you would do something in the local adjustments is because, one, you get the local adjustment here, but what's also cool is that you can change this to classic, and you can really start to modify this in a different way. So when you change it to classic, what it allows you to do is really start to enhance the tones in the image, separate, but also using that color. So I'm getting off on a rabbit trail, so I apologize for that. Let's get back to what we came here for. I will do a video that talks about local adjustments. That's just something that I had thought about and I wanted to share with you, especially when we start to unpack how we can use these presets that are built into ON1 to really learn what effects can stack well with others. So if this is a look that you like, then you're good to go. Now, let's say, I want to go with this look. I like this look. So what I'll do is I will make a snapshot by clicking on the snapshot tab up here in the upper right, and then click on new snapshot, and we'll just call this M1. All right. The names are really irrelevant. It's whatever you want it to be, or whatever makes sense for you to remember what you are editing or what that edit was. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and click the M11 preset. And now we're going to get a new set of filters. And you can see that this one only has 2 filters in it. The last one had 4. This one has 2. And same thing, we can turn them off and we get back to our original image. So this one starts with some sharpening, and it really adds in some contrast and darkens this entire image. In fact, I wonder if this has a blend mode. Yes, it does. And this is also the other reason why I recommend using the presets. You start to see how blend modes can also impact the image. And what I'm looking at over here in the properties pane is this is actually using a luminosity blend mode. It's kind of shortchanged here, or shorthanded, I should say, whatever, abbreviated. But I know that this one is the luminosity blend mode. So if I were to come up to normal, and if I turn this, now why didn't that change? All right, so I ran into a little bit of an issue, and I want to work through it with you because this is how I learn. All right, there's a lot of people on YouTube that will try to prove to you that they know something and that they're experts. I'm not one of those people. I am a user of the software, and sometimes things don't go as I planned them to, and I think that it's cool for us to kind of work through it and figure it out together. All right, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and select this preset M11, and this should go onto the image. There we go. All right, this has 2 presets. Now, when I turn off the tone enhancer, we can see that this particular image is really dark. And when I turn off the sharpening, we see that the image goes back to being brighter. And when I turn on the sharpening, the image gets more contrasty and dark, and I'm not sure what's causing that. All right, there's no masks applied to this image. The blend mode is set to luminosity, but even if I go back to normal, it still stays contrasty. I genuinely have no idea what's causing this. So this is why using this method of learning how ON1 works is so awesome. All right. Now, I know that it's not in the develop section, the thing that's causing this particular image to go dark. And it's also, is it in the local adjustments? Let's see. So it's not in the local adjustments either. Okay. It's purely coming from this sharpening effect, but I'm not sure what's causing it. So what we're going to do is just open up all of the fields to see what's in here. Now, this is all zeroed out. That's normal. And in fact, in order for us to know what's normal and what isn't, we need to go to add filter, and then we're going to add a default version of the sharpening effect. All right. So we're going to call this D sharp. So that way we know that that's default. And then this is the one that is actually from the preset. So now what I want to do is I like to start from the beginning. So opacity is up to 100%. I'm going to come over here to the sharpening effect. I'm going to pull this all the way up to 100%. It gets much darker when it's pulled up to 100%. So we know that the opacity is not the thing that's making this dark, because it gets darker when it gets pulled up. The original is set to progressive. So then what I'm going to do is come back to the other sharpening one, and I'm going to select progressive, see if that changes anything. Doesn't look like it did, because if I turn off the D sharp, it's not actually doing anything. It's not making it darker or lighter. So you do have to have it turned on to play with each of the filters. Now this is set to 50% on progressive for the amount and the detail. So we'll come over to our preset, and this is also set to 50%. So we're good there. And the threshold was already down to 0, and then the protect. So this is interesting. I am not sure what's causing this. So let's see. Let's turn off the sharpening down there, and you can see with the default sharpening, it's actually not causing this darkening effect. So we're going to see if by going through the presets, if any of these will make that darkening effect happen. So we're just going to hover over these and see if this changes. And I am not seeing it. So we're going to go ahead and reset that and come over to the blend mode. And we're going to go to luminosity. The color range, protect, all of that is set all 40. And then we'll turn it off, come back over here. We can see that that instantly makes the image dark again. And then coming over here, everything is still set the exact same. Okay. So this is set to soft light, not luminosity. I don't know what I was on, because if I set this to soft light and then I come over, or I'm sorry, set it to luminosity and then come back to soft light, it works. So then let's test this out. Let's come over to the D sharp. We'll turn on the default sharp. Make sure that we click the layer properties for that. Come over to the blending and let's change this to soft light. And there we go. So now that is how that darkening effect is happening. You guys watch me work through that in real time, and you know, I'm sorry if that took a little bit of time, but I wanted to show you that because this is how you learn how to use this software. It takes a little bit of time, it takes some trial and error, but what we learned right now is soft light is what's causing this darkening effect with the sharpen filter. So if you decide to use the sharpen filter down the line and you say, hey, I want this to be a little bit darker, well, don't forget about the blend modes, which do get overlooked. And with ON1 2024, I know that, you know, you can nest this back inside of the layer panel here, but I've just gotten used to having my properties over to the left side of the screen now. That's just the way that I work. So do what you think works best for your particular workflow. But that is something that I wanted to show you. So let's continue on and then we will end this video. So let's go ahead and turn that sharpening back on. And in fact, that's not even the right sharpening anymore. So let's just go ahead and reselect this particular preset. Let's get that to come back. There we go. Okay, so we've already talked about the sharpening, and now let's turn on the tone enhancer and let's see what the tone enhancer is doing. All right, so we know that the sharpening effect was darkening the overall image, adding in some contrast, and the tone enhancer is working on the highlights, it's working on the shadows, and even the blacks in the image. And then we see the curves filter is being used again here inside of the tone enhancer. So what we can do is probably come to opacity. We can pull this down and we start to fade back in that dark contrasty sharpening effect. All right. So these are techniques that you can really start to hone in for yourself and learn how you can use the presets to really use On1 Photo Raw to get a consistent look or just a unique look, something that's different, something that really stands out from the crowd when it comes to an edit in the image. So hopefully you found some value in this particular video. If you did, smash the like button. If you want to help support this channel, consider using my coupon code FreeWillPhotos20 whenever you shop on the On1 website. It works for courses, it works for presets, it works for purchasing of the software, whatever you may be doing over on the website. Consider using that coupon code. I do make a small commission, but everything that I earn, it goes right back into producing videos for this channel, and I greatly appreciate it. If you got questions, leave them down in the comment section below. And until next time, I want you guys to stay inspired and keep creating. Peace.